Hey there, this is Sumit. So I'm a front-end web developer and I'm super excited to share this video. In this tutorial, we'll explore how we can use GitHub to enable user sign-in for our React application. I have also created this Git repository that covers all the topic I will be discussing in this video. There's a link in description. Now let's begin by understanding various steps involved when we want to log in user using GitHub. If you want to sign in user into your application, you can use one of these methods. Imagine this is your application. First thing you can do is you can ask user to manually fill detail like username, password and all sort of information which is relevant for your application. Then you can store these information into your database. When user visit your website again, then you can ask user, okay, first tell me what is your username and password. If those detail match with information stored into your database, then you can say, okay, you can sign in into your account. Another method we can use is we can use third party login. We have website like GitHub, Google, Facebook. There are so many websites having millions of users. These websites allow you to access these websites allow you to sign in into your application. Okay, in this video we'll see how we can use GitHub to sign in user into our application. All these websites use auth 2.0. What is auth 2.0? Auth 2.0s are protocols that allow user to access relevant information from these website into your application. Okay, let me tell you what we are going to do in this video. In this video, first we will create a React application. So I'm explaining auth 2.0 process. Here we'll add a button like sign in with GitHub. When user click this button, user is sent to a GitHub authorization page. First, user has to authenticate himself. Authentication means user has to verify whether he is a valid user or not. Then user can click on authorize button. What is authorization? In authorization, you are giving access. I mean user giving access to this website. This website can access detail from GitHub. So you are allowing this website to access detail from GitHub. Okay. So this is what we are going to do in this video. Now I have given you a broad explanation. So let me tell you what we are exactly going to do. Now let's start with the very first step. First we will create a React application. When user click this login button, user is redirected to GitHub authorization page, and this is link for authorization page. If you see carefully in this link, we have two important parameters. One is client ID and another is scope. Using client ID and scope, GitHub will understand which application is making an authorization request and where we'll find this client ID and scope. First, we need to register our application to GitHub. Okay, so if you open GitHub, go to settings. In settings, you'll find this developer settings option. Here I can add my auth application. So let's create a React application. You can use npx create react app, but here I'm using Vite. Vite is a build tool for various applications like React, Swell. There are different type of applications. So just type npm create Vite latest. Type name for your project. You can name it anything. So let's just say git auth app. These are various type of application I can create. So I'm creating React application. I'm using JavaScript. Let's navigate to project folder. Now let's open this project in VS Code. If you open package.json file, you will find all these dependencies and tab dependencies. First, we need to install all these dependencies. So go to terminal. Type this command npm install. It will install all these dependencies. Let's wait for a few seconds. Okay, everything is installed now. In order to run this application, we need to run this command. So type npm run dev. Okay, so our application is running on localhost 5173. Let's see how it looks. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we'll add a login button here. When user click login button, user is redirected to GitHub authorization page. But we also need this client ID and scope. So now let's register this application to GitHub. Just click on register. Here I need to add name for our application. So let's say git auth. Here I need to provide a home URL for my application. So this is my application. Make sure just not to type localhost 5173 because I need to provide a IP6 address rather than using localhost 5173. Both are same thing, but I think we should use this address. Okay. We also need a callback URL. Why we need a callback URL? When user authorize on GitHub, when user authorize on GitHub page, GitHub will redirect user back to application. Okay. Here I need to add a callback URL. As you can see, we successfully registered our application. I can use this client ID. Now let's add a login button. Let me remove this extra stuff. Here we'll add a button. When user click this button, we'll run this function handle login. Let's define this function here. Now in order to redirect user to authorization page, I'm using window object. So type window.location.href. Here I can provide authorization link. So type as this link. Login auth authorize. Here I need to pass client ID. Okay, we need one more thing, which is scope. Now scope is a default parameter, so you can just type user. Okay. Now let's see what will happen if we click login button. As you can see, this is our authorization page. We have successfully redirected user to GitHub authorization page. When user click this authorize button, what will happen? User is allowing our website to access their information on their behalf. One more thing, when user click this button, user is redirected back to our application. But how our application is able to access user information? That is what we are going to discuss now. Remember, when we registered our application to GitHub, we have added this callback URL. In this callback URL, what GitHub is doing, GitHub is adding this code parameter. So this is authorization code. Using this authorization code, what we'll do, so this authorization code will expire in 5 minutes. So that is why we are making a post request to GitHub to access this access token. Once we have access token, then we can make API request to GitHub and we can get user information. Okay, so this is the URL where we'll make a post request. Why we are making post request? Because we are generating something. Okay, so once we have access token, we'll store this access token to local storage of our browser. Why we are storing access token to local storage? Because we obviously not going through this process again and again. Okay, once we have access token, we'll check the status of access token in our browser. If access token is present, then we can fetch user detail. Once we have user detail, we can change the status of logged in, whether user is logged in or not. Okay, so after authentication and authorization, user is redirected back to our application, but we have not created any callback page yet. As you can see, when user click this authorize button, user is redirected back to our application and this is callback URL. Now let's start by creating a callback page. But now let's first install two libraries which we are going to use. Now I have not created any dedicated server in this particular project. Obviously, if you are working with big project, you might have created a server for your project, but you will understand how you can make all these get and post requests. So we will install these two libraries. One is Axios. Using Axios, we can make all these get and post requests, and another is React Router DOM. Now using this React Router DOM, what we can do, we can create like separate component. For example, this is callback.jsx component which we are going to serve at this URL, and another component is homepage. After accessing the access token, when user click this authorize button, first user is redirected to this component, and then user is redirected back to our application. Okay, so what we are doing here, from this code we are accessing this code parameter. From this code parameter we are making a post request to access the access token, and then we are storing this access token to local storage of our browser, and then we are redirecting user to home page. Now let's install these libraries, save them as self dependency. Now our project is running on localhost 5173. Now what we are going to do, we will create a home page and a callback page. So I have created this callback component. Now let's start by creating a home page component. So we can say home.jsx. Now let's copy all the code from app.js file, because in app.js file I will be setting up different routes. So that is why I have created home page. So let's copy this component. Let me change its name. Alright, so what we are going to do now, in this app.jsx file, let me first remove this. Okay, so in this app.jsx file we are returning different routes. So let me first import few things from React Router DOM. We need routes and route. We will return this routes component. In this routes we can set up different routes. Okay, so first we will set up route for our home component. So now let's import these components. Let's import home from home component, callback from callback. So we are importing these components from home component and callback component. Okay, so here we can add route. In this route we will pass two things. One is obviously the element. In this element we will pass our component. So we can pass home component here, and another value we are going to pass is the URL for home page. Now let's set up same component for callback. Alright, we have set up different routes in our app file. Now we need to change few things in main.jsx file. We need to wrap around this component in browser router. So let me import browser router. So let's import browser router. We will wrap this component in browser router. Now this should work. Now we'll see if it's working or not. Let's click login button. As you can see, we are redirected back to. Let me first revoke all the user. So we can go through the authorization page. So this is my authorization page. When I click this authorization page, it is opening this component. Now what we are going to do, we have successfully redirected user to this callback component. From this callback component we are going to access the access token for user. So using this code we are going to access the access token. Okay, now we can easily access the access token from callback component. From authorization URL first we'll get authorization code. Once we have this code, we can make post request to access the access token. Now I have already explained how this post request work. So this is the endpoint where we are going to make a post request, and these are all the parameters consumed by this request. You already know client ID and client secret. Client ID and client secret generated when we registered our application to GitHub. Okay, now let's see how this post request work. So I have created this folder callback. In this callback you will find this file callback.js. In this file I have defined this component, this function get access token. Now first I am fetching this authorization code from authorization URL. So I have used this JavaScript class URL search params. As name suggests, using this class we can search for different parameters. For example, in this URL after question mark we have this code parameter, so we can use this get method to access the authorization code. Now we have all the parameters. One more thing, instead of adding entire URL to make a post request, I have only provided the path, because I am making a post request get request locally, because I have not created any dedicated server. So in my Vite configuration file I have added this server object, and I have this child object proxy. And how this work, so I have added this path, and this is host name. Okay, now let's import this get access token function in our component. One more thing we need is use effect hook. Alright, so use effect hook takes two parameters. One is function and another is an array of multiple values. So use effect hook is used for side effect in our component. Okay, now let's create a function fetch token. Obviously this function is an async function. Now let's add try catch block. Now let's define this response variable. Here I can call that function get access token. Oops. Now let's see, we can call it token. Now let's see how this token look like in console. So console.log this token. If there is any error, we can console.log that as well. Now let's define this response alright. Let me first revoke all the user so we can go through this authorization step. Now let's go to home page. Click on login with GitHub button. Now let's click this button. As you can see, this is our access token. Now we have access token, we can change the status of the user. We are done with this step of accessing the access token using authorization code. Now let's move to final step. In final step, we'll store this access token to local storage of our browser, and based on the status of local storage, the status of user is defined. Whether user is logged in or logged out depends on the status of local storage. Instead of consoling.log this value, store this access token to local storage. So local storage.set, use this method, pass name for this token. So I'm using access token. Finally pass the value, and now we'll navigate user from callback route to home route. In order to navigate from one route to another route, we can use navigate. So use navigate is a function provided by React Router DOM. Okay, create an instance of this function. And now we can use navigate, this navigate instance here. Just pass the URL for home page. Now let's check if it's working or not. Okay, so just click on login with GitHub, click on authorize. So first I'm redirected to callback page, and now I am redirected back to my home page. Imagine we have not added any access token to local storage. In that case, we can say user is equal to null, and when we have stored access token to local storage, then using that access token we can fetch user information. So in that case, we are going to change the status of user. Now in order to change the status of user, now let's import use state hook from React. Here I can say user, set user. Using this set user, we can change the status of user when we have data for user. Initially user is equal to null. When user is equal to null, we are displaying this login button. Here we can use ternary operator. If user equal to null, we will display this login button. When user is not equal to null, we can say user is logged in. Alright, now in order to so obviously we need to fetch the user information using access token. Let's import use effect also. We know use effect takes 2 parameters. Now in this case, we are going to pass the user value here. Because we are going to fetch the GitHub API when user status is changed. In this function, like we did for access token, I have also defined this function get user data. Remember, in get access function, we have provided this data directly to this post method. Now we are going to pass this access token in authorization header, because we cannot expose this detail directly to URL. That is why we are using this authorization header, and this is a way to pass this access token. So first we use this bearer, and then we'll pass the access token. Now here let's first access that token from local storage. So we can use local storage get item. Here we'll pass the name we have provided before. When we are going to fetch user data, obviously if token is present in local storage, then we are going to fetch the user data, and when user is equal to null. Okay, so if token is not equal to null and user equal to null, then we'll fetch the user data. So let's say data is equal to weight. Now we need to import that function, right? Import get user data from this callback.js file. Call that function get user data. Now we are not directly fetching this detail, so let's create a function here, fetch user data. This is an async function. Fetch user data. Here we can fetch the data. Call that function get user data. Now let's store. Now let's set. Obviously, I need to pass this fetch user. I need to call this fetch user data inside this if block. Now we can set the status of user here. Now user is equal to null, and I can set the status of user. So just use set user and pass this data value. Okay, it should work. Click to login with GitHub button. Now first let's revoke all the user. Maybe click on login with GitHub button. Click on authorize button. Okay, status is not changed. Let's see if there is any problem. Okay, so I am not able to get response from this get user data function. Okay, so we need to pass this access token here. So pass the token. User is successfully logged in. Now instead of showing user logged in, let's display some useful information. So I have created this user information component. This component is receiving two props. One is user data. So user data we fetched from GitHub API, and handle logout button. When user click handle logout button, we are clearing access token from local storage. If there is no access token in local storage, what will happen? So if there is no token, we are not fetching any API, we are not getting any response. So we'll display user this button login with GitHub. Okay, so let's import this user information component. Now instead of displaying user logged in, we can display this user information component. So we are passing two props in this component. One is the user data. We can pass the user here, and another is handle logout. So we will pass this handle logout function. Now let's create this handle logout function. Handle logout. Now all we are doing is clearing the access token. So wind local storage dot remove item. We can pass name of the item access token. Alright, as you can see, so this is profile picture of user. When we click this logout button, okay, nothing is happening. So okay, I forgot to change the status of user. So set user equal to null. I hope this works. Alright, so we are back to login page.